Thanks, Ron. My guest understands the teenage world, and she says it's never too late to help your teenager. For 25 years, Connie Ray has worked with families and youth at risk. She's not just a licensed counselor. She's raised 4 children in Wenatchee, Washington, the apple capital of the world.
Yes.
I should have heard of Wenatchee.
Well, it's not so much an apple capital anymore as it is a vineyard capital, but I think we're kind of still vying with one of our local communities for being the capital of the world in terms of apples.
Well, that's an important piece of trivia I wouldn't want to have missed, Connie. Hope for parents of troubled teens, a practical guide to getting them back on track. Now, you say yourself, there are lots of books to help parents in this life chapter. You even list some really good ones. What makes yours different? What's your focus?
Well, I think it's very easy for a parent, you know, when their child is not doing the things they want them to do or doing things they're fearful of and looking at them getting into trouble or being on the edge of trouble, to not just feel a sense of helplessness. Like, what can I do? Everything I say, nothing that I do seems to make any difference in the path that my child is taking, and I'm worried about what's going to happen to them. And so what I try to do in my book is make sure that parents know there is something they can do. They're not helpless in the process of dealing with this teenager. Teenage world is different. It's very different from the world that we might have thought about when we were teenagers.
Indeed.
And the media, TV, movies, music, you know, all of that has been a problem for parents who want their kids to stay pure, so to speak, through their teenage years. But today's kids are faced with so many things that even their parents in their teenage years were not faced with in the same way.
That's so true. And there's a fundamental truth, and you say it early, and it's a little bit of a comfort. I think we need to just embrace the reality, quote, "The nature of adolescence is to break away from parental rule."
Yes.
That's by design.
Yes.
They're seeking independence.
Our job as parents, I often tell parents I talk to, is to help prepare your child to go out into the world. It's not to massage your own ego or to show that you're a wonderful person or that you can do it right. I think most parents really try to do it right. They want to do the best that they can. They just don't always have the tools. They don't have maybe the background of being parented themselves that helps them to really be aware of all of the things that they could be doing that might be more helpful to them when their kid gets to be a teenager. Because teenagers are supposed to be on the path to being free from parental rule.
Were you a counselor when your parental crisis hit?
I had been involved with women's groups, Bible studies, teaching, speaking at various things, doing some retreats, and basically doing kind of the kind of counseling that you know, when people are just needing somebody to talk to.
So you had some really good artillery.
I had, oh yes, and here I was now. Everything that I had been talking about, everything that I had taught, scriptures that I had been implanting, hopefully in other parents, now was being challenged, and I was embarrassed, and I was dismayed. You know, we had done everything that we thought we could to help our children know God, to be raised in His Word, and to, you know, all of them, even our problem child, prayed to receive Christ into their hearts when they were little. And then we have this situation. Christian parents are not immune to the temptations of the world for their teenagers. And I've talked to so many parents over the years who said, you know, I was so glad, you know, when they got to be old enough to take care of themselves. No. They're not old enough to take care of themselves. So we need to be stepping back a little bit and hopefully giving them some good tools to work with.
But don't let go too soon.
But don't let go too soon. I think Dr. Dobson said, let go lightly, hang on loosely, or something like that. And it's giving them the opportunity to experience things, and a lot of that is allowing them to experience the consequences of some of their choices.
I love the illustration someone gave of holding them like a kite. They need to be able to soar, but don't let go of the end of the rope. Tell us about your son.
Well, he was a sweet boy. and loving, kind, and very strong-willed. And from the time he was probably 2, it was, I'm sorry you don't want me to do that, you know, but I have to. I have to do that. I have to explore the world. I have to figure it all out. And he would accept any punishment, any consequence, any discipline, as long as he
do it.
and still do it. You know, whatever I have to do, I have to do. And that really exploded on him when he got into his teenage years. And it was just the experimentation. You know, the friends. The friends were in the church. And so, again, it's really important that a parent knows who their child's friends are, who have those kids into your home.
And how to detect drug use.
Yeah.
That can be a challenge.
And maybe now we're more aware, but back then, that was a long time ago, back then it was, you know, my kid would never do that. I mean, it wasn't even on the radar screen. You know, he wouldn't experiment with anything like that. And the first thing that happened was my father was recovering in our home from a long illness, and my son just thought he would borrow some money from Grandpa's checkbook for the purpose of getting a little money because he was in sports and stuff, and he didn't have much opportunity to earn money by working. Did some things at home, gave him allowance. But he wrote a check on Grandpa's account. A friend signed the check, made out to him, bought a stash of marijuana that he was going to sell and make some money on, gave most of it away, smoked some of it himself probably, and there he is now. What's he going to do? I think he didn't really understand how the check world and the banking works, because Grandpa goes to reconcile his checks and there's a check made out to my son, signed by Grandpa's name, and it's like, whoa. And he was confronted, he denied, but then he couldn't deny the reality that was there. So that was the beginning, and from there he got a job, was going to pay back, but just one thing led to another, and he started school in the fall, rarely attended. He was going to school and disappear and be out running around, and just one thing led to another until he got in so far over his head, you know, that he couldn't get out. And so around 6 years of this in juvie, out of juvie, mostly crimes against the family, writing checks, pawning family items, and always being remorseful, but just caught up in something that he couldn't free himself from.
Really habitual sin.
Yeah.
We have a photograph of your family at that time. I think your son is on his way to rehab.
Well, it's just before his last arrest, and the ultimatum given to him: either go to jail for quite a while or go to a treatment program.
Which one are we
he's
talking
the
about?
one with hanging on the tree.
With the orange shirt.
Yep.
Your eldest?
That's he's the second born.
He's second.
Seattle Pacific University dormitory was the building behind.
You know, in a crisis like this, 6 years of this crucible, it's stressful, of course, on the whole family and anyone who cares. But sometimes mom and dad aren't on the same page in terms of how to handle it, how to apply discipline, how to respond. Did you find that a stressor on your marriage, Connie?
I guess not as much as it might be for some others. We'd known each other since freshmen in high school. We had a lot of the same grounding spiritually through that Christian high school that we were a part of, and again he was as dismayed as I was, you know, about what was going on, and as a dad felt probably even more, and a teacher who was respected in the community. His school was right across the street from the high school where our son was going and disappearing from. And so the good thing was, when I was down and saying, I can't do this one more minute, he'd say, well, yeah, you can, we can do it. And then he'd get down and say, come on, you know, and what could we do? The last real discipline I think I remember from dad to son was taking him upstairs to his bedroom, leaning him over the bed, smacking him with his tennis shoe on the behind when he was like 15, and came down, and I said, well, what good did that do? And he said, I don't know, I feel better. Knew, you know, nothing was working at that point in time, and we were just heartsick.
So you know that feeling of helplessness, powerlessness that many parents feel. A strong word, one of my favorites, connecting. You know, in earlier chapters in our home, my husband would say, you have to find a way to connect with your son. well, does that mean play Xbox? You know, what if they're not talking and they're not hanging around? It is really a challenge in this different world that our teenagers live in to find a way to really connect.
Yes.
It's a lot, you talk about that a lot.
Yes, and I think and some of that connecting is just from us to them, not expecting anything back from them. A lot of the connecting that we may do when we're having that difficulty with our teenagers is stop this, don't do that, you're disappointing me, you know, what's wrong with you, all of those kind of things. And at some point we have to move away from that. I read a quote the other day, or read something in a magazine that said, wise parents speak when they have something to say. Unwise parents speak because they have to say something.
Yeah. I am so impressed by your honesty about what God was doing in your lives through this. Really, just 1 minute? I can't believe it. You say, I had to step back from quiet judgment of other parents. That's one of the changes in your own heart and life.
I think this is a wonderful time for a parent to find a new kind of relationship with God, no matter how long they've been a Christian, to be able to examine themselves and say, you know, what have I not done that I should have done? What have I done that I shouldn't have done? And God, help me to apologize to this child for something that that may have helped them, not have helped them get where they needed to go. And so hope is the name. Hope is the name of the game. There is no such thing as hopelessness or helplessness.
I want to show a picture of the fruit of your hope. 17 grandchildren
17
now?
grandchildren.
And they're not even all here. This is part of
yeah,
your
they're all
clan.
there now. Some of them are photoshopped in.
Ah, that's the trick.
This was our 50th wedding anniversary, and one of them was quite ill and couldn't. The mom had to stay home with her and the baby. So, and one was on a hot dog jump rope competition trip. So, yep, there's a lot of us.
Wonderful story, wonderful help in Hope for Parents of Troubled Teens. Connie Ray's book is available everywhere. And she reminds us God loves our children more than we do. They are part of a bigger plan of God for our lives. More in here. And we have this at our e-store, our new wonderful landing spot. If you'd like to get a copy of this book, just log on to crossroads.ca or our toll-free number 1-800-265-3100. Connie, God bless you there in Apple Country.
Thank you.
We'll be back.